What's up, everybody? Josh here. I am coming at you from the campus of Willamette University, where I am teaching a songwriting camp currently. At the time of this recording, it is Sunday, and I have not had a moment to make a video, but I did want to check in with you and let you all know that the camp has been incredible. I've had amazing songwriters. I think the youngest we have is 10 years old, and she writes a song at least per day. It's incredible. Has tons of confidence. And then I think ages go up to about 17. I think that's the oldest, and everywhere in between. 11 writers, all just full of passion and have taken everything that I've given them and totally run with it. And so that's just been a really amazing experience. I'm gonna probably do some updates after camp is over on that whole process. And it's given me a lot of fuel and a lot of fire to come up with new things that I can talk about on the channel. And so I'm very excited about that. But also, I wanted to introduce my good friend Eric Allen. I'm gonna play you some of the interview that we did back in May that I'm just now starting to have a little bit of time to edit. It's gonna be just pieces of the interview. I think we did about 2.5 hours, but I'm editing currently and trying to get something up before tomorrow so that I stay consistent with my Tuesday offerings on this channel. But just wanted to say thank you for your patience with me. I'm still dealing with the broken wrists. In fact, this one actually had to have a surgery, which was very unexpected. And that was about a week and a half ago. And then the other wrist, which I'm holding, also turned out to be broken. So initially I thought it was a sprain. Nope, they're both broken. So right hand though is doing better than the left. And thank you for all the well wishes, people who wrote in to say get well soon. I very much appreciate that. So anyway, that's it. I'm gonna turn it over to my interview with Eric, or at least a piece of it, and give you something to look forward to over the next few weeks where there will be more from Eric. But just want to say thanks to all of you who are subscribing and tuning in every Tuesday, and hope you have an amazing week. Thank you. I got Eric Allen with me from Fathering Artist and Black Box today. Today we're just going to talk about all things songwriting, all things songwriting retreats.
Awesome.
What made you start Fathering Artists, and what is like a retreat like?
Yeah, totally. I think as a young kid, it was just any time that I had a chance to, get people together to create, it was like a drug. We would break into my dad's church, had a little butter knife. I figured out how to get in and turn the sound system on. We were a Pentecostal church, so of course we had drums and the whole nine, taping up over cassette tapes, putting them in and press and record, and just capturing stuff. It was like a drug for me. So that was sort of like, very prominent in the DNA of like Eric Allen for my whole life. Just where can we gather anyone that was interested in creating something? And then also the capturing piece of it, like getting it recorded in something that didn't exist, and then all of a sudden it exists. That was just intoxicating to me. As I kept growing up, and trying to figure out ways to do that more often. I guess I was a first year student at BSSM. I think I got 16 people in first year that wanted to like songwrite, and we broke up into groups of 4, and we just started meeting. There was enough intrigue and desire there, especially with kind of the aspiring or emerging songwriter that wasn't, super developed and didn't have a ton of opportunities. And the funnel in Reading, was attracting creatives. And so we just started doing that simple thing of, songwriting. And I've told this story before, years and years ago, I got invited to a retreat, and everyone loaded up their cars and trucks with all their instruments, and we were going to divide up into groups and write. And beautiful ranch in Austin, Texas. I'll never forget getting the invitation. It was like, oh man, I'm stoked. This is what I'm made for. And we got out there, and there wasn't enough like leadership or structure. And so when the teams hit forms of resistance or, lack of creativity or writer's block, whatever you want to call it, instead of having some sort of a facilitation or guidance through those thresholds, we just ended up like drinking beer and fly fishing, and which was great. If that had been the what we signed up for, I would have been like, heck yeah. But I was disappointed because I was like, man, let's push through. I have a competitive spirit. I was involved in sports my whole life, and I'm just like, let's figure out a way. And that's why I've always been, probably to a fault, because I've also learned the value of just letting things happen organically, not stressing over things. I don't know who it was recently I saw on Instagram. They were like, hold on, wait. Writing with 4 other people at 2 p.m.? I never do that. You kidding? I'm out fishing on a boat and I get an idea. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Write it down, record it.
Is that the Hank Jr.
I think it is.
Oh my gosh, it's so
That's
funny.
what it is.
It's
so funny. I love it.
Yeah.
And I'll probably hit on that subject matter in a minute, but there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and there's a lot of different personalities out there, and so there's not one way. But so I started teaching this AMT, this class called Fathering Artists, and then because of that experience I had, 20 some odd years ago, I was like, how can I create an encouraging atmosphere with some guardrails and some leadership to where, we finish what we start. Yeah. And so we went up to Medford, Oregon, and that's where it began. And I had a group of 16 people in 2013, I believe, was our first retreat. And the rest is history. And so it's really just creating this space where creatives can come and get kind of pulled through the thresholds of fear and insecurities and that whole roller coaster that you go on, so that you start a song, finish a song, perform a song. And that's what we've done basically at every retreat since.
I want to go back to kind of your early days. You talk about breaking into the church. It's like, 3 or 4 of you guys, late at night. You were recording as well?
Yeah, you remember how you could put the tape over a cassette?
Yep.
Well, you probably don't remember. But
I do, actually. I had a 4-track tape.
If we ran out of actually blank tapes, we'd go and find a tape that we hated or put tape over it and record on a little, simple recorder. Mm. But yeah, we'd throw ideas down. I remember I think one of my first songs we recorded was called One Way, and it was the one-way sign, but it was pointed up to God.
Okay.
Good
Sweet.
stuff.
Yeah.
Just cheesy, trying stuff. Especially as a Christian, I was in that whole phase. My parents chilled out. I was like the third child of 4, and those parameters started to lighten up. And but for the most part, we just listened to Christian music, went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. My mom played piano. My dad led worship and preached. And we were at the church like hours and hours every week. My brother played drums once he left. He was 8 years older, 7 years older. I started playing drums. It was awful. It was piano, drums, no bass, no guitar. And and just love it. Sports and music, 2 main passions, but just loved it. And so we would gather, and I was in bands and doing stuff, but I'll never forget my brother was hiding a U2 album. It was the Joshua Tree record, and I'll never forget finding that. I think he was trying to hide it from my parents, of all things. And it was like in the mattress in the bed, and I found it somehow. And I remember putting that into my Walkman, and I listened to that whole thing front to back multiple times that night, and just weeping in my bed by myself.
Wow.
And it was just like, man, I want to live in that feeling. I want to create that feeling. I want other people to experience that feeling. The power of music is just, I don't know. I think people that aren't even musical maybe don't express it in the same way. Maybe the hunger is not exact, but it's still such a huge part of most people's lives, and the messages that you can carry, on a melody, the lyrics that you can, put on a melody of a song you could never do by just like right now in a podcast. And it's compelling in a completely different cerebral, emotional way, and creates change in people. So I love it.
How old were you when you wrote your first song then?
I think I was probably, 9, 8,
Yeah.
8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you come from basically like your family's musical. I mean, that's,
Yep. Mom
Is that-
plays the piano by ear.
yeah.
Dad sings lots of vibrato from their era, but great voice. He's got a great voice. His whole family was, that's what I remember growing up, was anytime we visited them, it was gathering around a piano and just singing and dancing and gut-wrenching laughter and joy.
Wow.
And yeah, my dad's sister, her husband had this clear acrylic drum set that he always had set up in his living room. It was like music was such a part of their lives. It was like the living room is a studio.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, that's what we do. So I just grew up around it.
Were there other writers in the family, or or was that something that was like unique to you?
Yeah, I think, well, specifically my siblings, I think they loved music, and they've dabbled in it, and my older brother plays guitar and loves music. My younger sister definitely did as well, but they weren't into it as much as I was.
Were you co-writing as well?
Nowadays, information is so readily available. Understanding the landscape of music and how it's created, and songwriting, publishing, co-writing, splits, like knew nothing about that.
Yeah.
Nothing. Back when I was growing up, sports were facilitated, things in school, academics, stuff like that, but music, not really. So you were just kind of out on your own, just garage banding it. And it was the 80s, so you had like the start of MTV and stuff like that, which you were just like, whoa, that's how you consume music. I would go to the record store and look through at first it was 8 tracks, and then it was tapes, and then CDs, and I would just literally mow lawns and lifeguard to have a budget to buy the next record. I would stay up most nights and fall asleep just listening to albums.
You mentioned U2 as an influence. Was there any other like seminal bands that you're like, this changed everything and set you on a path artistically or creatively, like in your own songwriting?
Yeah, I think if you know Enneagram, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so I'm generally wide. I'm wide relationally, I'm wide music taste, and I enjoy lots of things. So my musical influences were also wide. So I had the whole Christian gamut of Stryper to Amy Grant to Petra, to Whiteheart, bands, individual artists, and then the worship that started to come out of like Integrity Music and Maranatha and some of those things. I was listening to those. I'll never forget Rita Springer, like hearing her as a young kid and just going like, whoa, that's different. The rasp in her voice and the passion. So I definitely was influenced by her. But I would listen to bands and really be drawn, if I'm honest, more just to the sonic landscape initially at least. Yeah. And Rich Mullins was one of the first artists that really communicated not only in the lyrics of his song, but I saw him in concert a couple of times. And just the way that he orated and the way that he talked about music or life, it was so poetic and so meaningful and so deep. It like marked me. And so I think from a standpoint of songwriting, it was like that was an inspiration for me to go, whoa, there's more here than just cookie cutter lyrics. There's more than just writing about surface level stuff. The Cure, Depeche Mode, Erasure, the whole new wave movement. Yeah. I loved all that stuff. Morrissey, that whole era was really impactful to me. Even like the big hair bands like Van Halen and Def Leppard and just. But then also on that kind of just wrote singer-songwriter side, connecting with all of the greats throughout the years, and even back into the 70s, and James Taylor and all of those that came through the 60s and 70s that really highlighted songwriting. I consumed it all, man. So many great people that influenced me through the formidable year, like the younger years. But
you got to see like the change into like kind of this digital era. There's so much more that is expected of the artist. How does that jibe with like how you're approaching following artists and maybe even black box? Because you're doing a lot of work with independent artists that are, some young, maybe some that have been around for a while. How do you, direct and guide an artist? Because there's just so many ways to do it now.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind, like when I was growing up, like 80s, 90s, probably the fears were more around doubt, around being able to even have an opportunity, right? Where is the opportunity going to come? Nowadays, I think the fear is around insecurity and comparison, because you've got so much opportunities there. And so now you're seeing everyone and you've got so much talent. Every artist has the opportunity to run their own personal business. A lot of them can be moderately successful financially even, if they do it right and spend enough time at it. Now it's like, wow, the opportunity's there. It's more like confronting almost too, of like, shoot, now I have no excuses. I can go and YouTube anything. I can figure out how to work a DAW. These microphones are only $250 used. I can record my own music and release a record from my iPhone. So opportunity's rampant. It's like expansive. It can potentially pull the negative sides of humanity, because then we're trying to just copy or duplicate or do what we think people want to hear and all those things, right? I mean, you got a million podcasts talking about all this stuff. I want to be the guy in the room, boots on the ground. JP, my partner in this, building Fathering Artists as a nonprofit and trying to expand our offerings to artists all over the globe. He's like, I tend to write my thoughts down. I tend to want to just be relational, and he can talk forever. So I'm even sitting here right now and having insecurities like, am I going to say anything compelling? Am I going to put two strings of sentences together that people want to hear? Like, I don't know. I feel like my potency is just doing the stuff, like walking it out, creating an atmosphere. We call it Fathering Artists simply because someone said, I see you fathering artists, and something leapt in my spirit. Yeah. And of course I am a dad, but there's something powerful about what you get from a fathering and mothering spirit. This safety, this security, this willingness to believe in yourself. So much of that is shaped by how your mom and dad treated you. Yeah. And so if I could be that sort of effect on people's lives in their, late teens, 20s, 30s that want to go after art and creativity, I'm like, that's what I'm about. Like, that's powerful. Yeah. Not creating an atmosphere of control or demand or, like acceptance and all of that. But, my phone's going off. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Speaking of kids, it's my kid. I better take it.
When I grew up, it was like very similar, I would say I'm more of a 90s kid than an 80s kid. It was like, the dream is to like sign with a label, for an artist, or sign with a publishing company. It seems like the pathways to success are so open now, and almost open in a way that I think it's like has this effect of like, well, which path do I take as an artist today? I think a lot of artists still are like pursuing maybe a label, because like there's this legacy music industry that says that's what you need in order to find, whatever modicum of success that you think equals success. Where do you feel like Fathering Artists fits into like kind of the music industry?
Information is not bottlenecked anymore. It's not protected like it was. There's less importance for IP because information is just out there. You can go learn about anything. And so now it's more about execution. Can you actually execute? And then that's where, if you had the information that no one else had, or you had the IP that no one else had, you could sort of get away with not being great at executing on certain things. Does that make sense? Yeah. You were relying more on the information you had that created the results you wanted, or the money, or the profit margins, or whatever. But now the information's out there for everybody. So now it's like, can you actually execute on a more even playing field where everyone has access to everything? And I think the paradigm shifts now are happening so much faster. Everything I'm saying right now could be, I might disagree with myself in 2 months.
Right.
Not core values, holistic,
Sure.
stuff, but the industry is shifting. So like right now we could say labels suck and artists, you can do it independent. It is true. And I'm not saying all labels suck. I'm saying everyone's reinventing what works, and those paradigm shifts that used to take decades now are taking like months, just a few months. And you're seeing people change. And so I'm seeing even being involved in the music industry. So I've got this ministry focus through fathering artists, and then just being involved in ministry my whole life at some level, and especially even the last 15 years being connected up here in Reading. But, the industry side, I've seen the inside of the way that labels work and the way that independent artists, aside from labels, have tried to figure it out, and many have figured out. And I'm seeing those labels now shift. So, I even said in a video that we posted recently that the industry's really shifted from artist development to artist discovery.
Yeah.
That is true. But now, even as I say that, I'm seeing the industry shift back to going, shoot, we need to actually develop these artists.
Yeah.
It can't just be a flash in the pan TikTok moment, because if those people don't know actually how to write songs, how to live out an artist, career roadmap, and what hard work is, and what branding and storytelling and marketing really is, and what it takes, then it'll just be a one-hit wonder. So does that make sense?
Totally.
So these paradigm shifts are happening a lot quicker now, and you're seeing people adjust to what's happening. So I would say that artists now are confronted with this need to know who they are, because the opportunity's there, information's there. It is saturated at some level, but there's also over 8 billion people on the planet, and you can get your music out to tons of nations and cultures and people. The audience is huge.
All right, so that's going to do it for part one of my interview with Eric. Hope you enjoyed some of that conversation. There's going to be more to come, and Eric has a lot more interesting things to say about songwriting, about retreats, and all the things he's up to. So thanks so much for sticking around. If you watch the whole thing, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey everybody, I just wanted to invite you to download a free copy of my ebook, Songwriter's SOS. SOS stands for Spark, Optimize, and Seek. Spark inspiration with gratitude. Optimize your environment and routine, and seek new experiences and perspectives. In this ebook, I talk about some of the ways that you can optimize your life for creativity. I've got some prompts for you and some exercises for you, but it expands on everything I talk about in these YouTube videos: how to break through creative blocks, how to generate endless song ideas. It's completely free. Just sign up for my newsletter and I'll send it straight to your inbox. Hit the link in the description and grab your copy of it now. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing Songwriter's SOS with you, my free ebook.